This is Bill Morton for Trudy Leong, our co-host, who couldn't be here today. She was working full-time. You're watching Community Unity Now, the D-Tycoon Show. And I'm very, very happy to have my friend, Brad Markus, here.
Hello.
Yes.
Thank you for having me on.
Of course. We've been friends for a very long time. I'm wearing my 60626 Rogers Park shirt right here because it's our neighborhood. We're both fellow Rogers Parkers, and we had a conversation during voting. That's when we met up most recently.
Exactly.
And we just kind of like came back together after a long time when I was an election judge and he came in to vote, and we just kind of reconnected. Yeah. So I remember a long time ago I mentioned I would have you as a guest on the radio show in here, and we hadn't done it yet, so I was like, there is no time like now. No time like the present. So tell me, there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on with you and us. Let's start with our neighborhood. Let's just start there.
Yeah, I like being there. It's a great neighborhood. A lot of changes, but I think it's pretty good. One thing, they chopped down a lot of trees that I like. Unfortunately, I don't know what the reasons are, but other than that, it's pretty good. I live right on the lakefront, so right in Rogers Park, well, near Loyola Park Fieldhouse area.
So you mentioned the trees you like the most that were chopped down. Which ones were they?
In the park, they're from Chewy on down to Pratt. There's a few trees that I thought were really beautiful were chopped down for various reasons. Maybe they had an infection or hit by lightning or whatever, but I didn't think they had to do it. Maybe there was some other reasons that I didn't know about. I'm not sure.
Were they old trees? Were they in the park? Were they along
the
street?
They were in the park, and there was one on the street on Pratt that was real big. They said it was decayed on the inside, but it didn't show any signs on the outside. It was really big, right at the end of Pratt. Very big one. You probably remember if you had seen it.
Okay. So we did meet at the previous election. And you're a voter. You're a registered voter. You're an active voter.
Yes.
I'm an election judge every time there's an election, and I'm not running. And I see you every single time I am an election judge.
That's great.
Why do you think it's so important to vote?
Well, it's just something we should do. A lot of people sacrificed, especially in the Black American community, to have the right to vote. They couldn't even vote, or they were prohibited by so-called people that think they knew what they were doing. So I think that's one of the reasons, Hopefully the people we vote for are actually working in our best interests. So I haven't had any political experience, but there's usually a lot of controversy in political arenas. So with different people, it's polarizing to some degree, and I don't think it should be, but of course people have different agendas.
So you're talking about civics and neighborhood community building versus politics.
But more of national politics,
Okay.
like the right wing versus left wing. It's very polarized. But in Chicago, I guess there's some issues, but there's a lot of people get along. So it depends on where you live. There's safety, like crime that happens in Chicago. It's not as bad as people that don't live here think, but there are issues with crime even in Rogers Park, which it shouldn't be. It seems like Rogers Park is basically a pretty safe area from my vantage point of being in more rough neighborhoods over the years.
So let's talk about some of our mutual friends. I see you at the Green Mill.
Oh yes, I love the Green Mill. I love all the jazz venues, so music venues, but especially jazz. So that is a place I go a lot, yes.
And you're at the table, you're sitting at the table with Joni Pilato and her husband Sparrow.
Oh, you know them.
Oh,
Good.
They're good friends.
Yes, Joni Pilato and Sparrow, good people, good musicians since the late 1970s, I think. So I remember hearing about them in the 1980s, but I did not meet them till about 1998 or 9.
And so we also intersect in those areas.
Yeah,
What
music.
are some of your favorite jazz clubs?
Oh yeah, well, Rogers Park has a good place that it's called Le Piano. The owner unfortunately passed on, but I highly recommend that place. There's a place on the south side, Quarry, which is on 75th East. There's Andy's. Let's see, Constellation on 3111 Western is a good one. Elastic Arts,
Okay.
some good venues in general. Sometimes people play at a place where there's no club, but it's a performance spaces.
I like the Fullerton Lofts and Winters Jazz Club as well.
Oh, Winters is good. I just
Yeah.
went this year for the first time. I had never been there, so that's another good one. There's probably some I'm missing, but I haven't. Oh, the Jazz Showcase, which is a legend since 1947.
That's a great place as well.
Yes. It brings together a lot of people, and you usually get together with, you can, sometime at the Green Mill, I was there for George Freeman's birthday party. He passed away last year at 97. And I got to talk to people that I had never met. So you can meet interesting people at these music venues.
And the interesting thing about George Freeman, he has got an album, Hell Yeah, or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, remember that?
And Mike Alamana has taken over the band. He played with George Freeman and Von Freeman. And he played at the beginning, George Freeman saying, all right, now say, yeah, yeah. And then they said, hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
And then they started the show.
And the whole crowd says it together, and it's
Yes.
a really cool thing. And George had such a powerful spirit.
He really did. His brother, too. One historical fact that he played with Charlie Parker in 1950. There's a recording of it at the Pershing Lounge, which was on 6400 South Cottage Grove.
Wow. And there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on with music in the city of Chicago.
Yes.
And I know you're a big fan of Sun Ra.
Yes, my favorite musician overall was Sun Ra.
Can you tell us a little bit about why they're your favorite, what they're about, and their Chicago history?
Yep, Sun Ra was a pianist, keyboardist, but he did many other things. He started his career in Birmingham, Alabama. He was born in 1914, and he had a band down there. But he started his official group, the Orchestra, here in Chicago, 1955, and which is still in operation, being led by Marshall Allen, who's 101 and still playing and leading the band at various times, not always, but pretty often. So yeah, Sun Ra started here in Chicago, and he pioneered playing electric keyboards. He would have dancing, costumes, drums, percussion, synthesizers, big band charts, standards like East of the Sun or Over the Rainbow. There were so many different styles in his music. And I became interested because he was talking about outer space, and it was real experimental. But then I also found out he was tuned into the classics, classic jazz and classic standard tunes. So he was well-rounded, actually. But he's known for his far out part. A lot of people dismissed him because of that, but he's now getting his due. He's very popular. He's released probably almost as many albums. He died in 1993. He's probably released as many albums since then. Reissues, unissued material, live albums. But he's a legend. Plus, he had a vision for the world to change the planet with sound and different ideas.
And that's the really interesting part. When I was a DJ at WZRD, The Wizard, 88.3 FM out of Northeastern Illinois University, there was a lot of Sun Ra being played because Wizard is celebrating over 50 years, like 54 or
Is
something,
it? Wow.
56
I remember them in the
years of
early
freeform
1980s.
radio.
And it was
And-
very far out.
And they're very proud of being weird and freeform, like just doing your thing. And there is a lot of jazz and a lot of weird. So Sun Ra fits into that little pocket of Wizard. And I've heard a lot of Sun Ra on WZRD.
Good, I'm glad you were able to hear it because maybe you had other focuses, but you were able to hear it. To really appreciate Sun Ra, you have to kind of delve into it.
But more interestingly than the Wizard is the extraterrestrial, universal, outer space aspect of it.
Absolutely, that was one of the main things that interested me because he really talked about it, and then I would hear him say, "I'm not from this planet."
Tell me more about this. This is the interesting part.
Well, there's two things that he really felt like he was from there, but he also had an experience. I don't think it was a dream. I think he was laying in bed or sitting in his room, and these beings took him in a beam of light to another planet, and they told him, "Oh, you need to concentrate on your music." He was at Alabama A&M in Huntsville, and I guess they wanted him to stick with his music because he had a mission to do. That's what they were telling him. But he was trying to get away from music, but this was a sign that he had to do it. But that was, and it focused him. He always talked about outer space, and he was consistent. On stage or off stage, he was the same person. He wasn't just, well, on stage I'm dressed in a costume, and when I'm off I'm a totally different person. He was consistently like that. A lot of musicians, living or passed away, will testify to this, his characteristic of being genuine. He really believed what he was saying and what he was living.
And a lot of musicians, like we're talking about theatrical shock rock, we're talking about Alice Cooper, or maybe a Marilyn Manson, or a Gene Simmons. Like they have like different personas on stage and off the stage, or maybe it's the same on stage and off the stage. And that's the scary part, maybe.
It can be, I haven't delved into a lot of those artists, but yeah, some of them probably were. They had some issues or whatever, but.
So tell me, you mentioned that, and tell me if I'm getting this right, my interpretation of this. Sun Ra got abducted by extraterrestrials who influenced him, even though he didn't want to stay in music maybe, to stay in music because that is his biggest influence to change our world for the better.
Yes, he talked about that. He said sound could change the planet, and a lot of scientists have researched that. There's an incident that happened in the 1950s when he first started. His partner, Alton Abraham, who had a lot to do with his development, he worked as an x-ray technician. He was one of the first black American x-ray technicians at Mount Sinai Hospital. So they went to a Heinz hospital where there were these people that hadn't spoke, hadn't talked, didn't move. And he started playing his experimental music. And a lady ran up, and hadn't talked in 10 years, ran up to the piano and said, "You call that music? That's not music." She had spoke, so it woke up something in her brain. They were researching different things about sound and words, Alton Abraham and Sun Ra continued it through his life, through his music and his poems. He actually issued a poetry book, The Immeasurable Equation. A lot of people don't know about his poems, which I've recited them at poetry open mics.
Do you know anything about binaural beats? Have you heard of that?
I've heard of it, but I haven't really listened to it. Tell me something about it in your experience with it.
Well,
since
I'm
I
not
don't
very
know much
experienced
about
with it. From what I heard, is it goes something is like left and right. Maybe it goes to the left side part of your brain or the right part of your brain, and it changes your realm of thinking, or it does something to your mind. Does it sound like something that
Yeah,
you're
it's
talking about?
connected. There's a lot of different type of sound therapies and meditation. Mantras, meditation that changes your consciousness. But one of the big things in the world today is we're talking about raising consciousness. so that people could accept other dimensions or other realities or even extraterrestrial contact. They have to be ready psychologically and consciously for these type of things. The world is changing whether we like it or not. It's going to change. We have to adapt. Sun Ra mentioned this in a talk. He said it's not about repentance, or it's about adjusting yourself to another way of thinking.
So
I had the exact quote, but he was referring to a Bible scripture and he was reinterpreting it as adjusting yourself rather than a belief or a faith.
I have a friend, and she has in the corner of her apartment, she has this metal structure like a pyramid, like the Egyptian pyramids, and she can actually sit inside of this pyramid, and she believes in extra or other dimensions.
Yeah,
Do you believe in that?
absolutely. Also, the pyramid shape does something to the energy in the middle. People have put plants in the middle of a pyramid shape, and it preserves them. Plus, people have investigated the Great Pyramid, the different measurements. They line up to the way the Earth is. It's like they knew a lot of the diameter of the Earth, the way it moves, the stars where they were at a certain point.
So we're talking about extraterrestrial, and we're talking about ancient civilizations,
Yeah.
and we're talking about great structures, seven wonders of the world, and they're lined up with stars. And how about the ley lines?
Yes, I don't know a lot about it other than it's different energy that controls or affects the way things are happening on the earth with people and even objects. So some people practice grid work. They call it grid work, where they're sending out prayers or thoughts or energy to purify or balance the grid, which has to do with ley lines, I believe.
So
One lady, Laura Eisenhower, she talks about this. She's the great granddaughter of Dwight Eisenhower.
so the ley lines, they're under the ground, and
Yes.
I believe it's water. They say it's water flowing under the ground, and it's has friction with limestone under the ground, and it creates some sort of electric force or energy, or there's some magnetism involved, and they say with like a dividing or a dowsing rod, they can find water in the ley lines and different energies and different things like that.
It's a type of what they call divination. But they're realizing that things that were called pseudoscience or metaphysics are actually based on real scientifically measurable things. This is what we're finding out. And Sun Ra and Alton Abraham and other people, of course, have researched these things over the centuries. And now the scientists are starting to find out that a lot of these things are actually measurable and real. It's not just something somebody made up.
So, why do you believe, and how do you believe it's real?
What?
The extraterrestrials.
Oh, well, a lot of people have had experiences with them. And also that there's millions of planets all over. If you see how many galaxies we have that are, if they have stars, some people say they're not there, but most people know, and scientists have seen the galaxies, observed them. There's millions of stars, and some of them planets have been observed around them. So there's chances that there's physical life, but there's also life that's interdimensional. It's not on a physical, it's on a finer plane, but they do have shapes and forms. So I feel I've had experiences of seeing some interdimensional beings. I say they are extraterrestrials, about 3 or 4 beings. Sometimes you just sense their presence, or you sense a thought being directed at you, or you resonate with the information. I've done research on galactic races. Popular name is Pleiadians, but there's also Arcturians. the Anunnaki, some other galactic races that come from other planets that are far away. And the way they travel here is through stargates. It's almost like a window through a different dimension. And they're able to go from one place far distance to another very quick.
So let's talk about the Stargate. I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
Is it a physical thing like the Stargate TV
You
show?
won't see it. It's in the atmosphere, and the extraterrestrials know how to get there. And a lot of their ships are plasma ships. Some of them are actually nuts and bolts metal. Even those, they know how to get through these. Some different people have experienced them and talked about them. For example, Elena Danaan mentioned that there's a Stargate near Jupiter where this intergalactic confederation came in a lot of fleets of motherships in 2021. I actually had a dream of one of these ships. It was real big in the dream. I believe that she's speaking factual things. There's a lot of skeptics, but we will see what happens. Also, that science fiction, as portrayed, say, in Star Trek, is soft disclosure. The people behind the scenes, they already know, but they don't want to reveal it to humanity.
So
It's a soft disclosure.
you're saying art is imitating life.
Yeah, could say that.
Let's talk about. We can go any direction with this at this point, but let's talk about your group, your otherworldly group, the people you hang out with or you meet up with.
Oh, different. I mean, I go to different conferences, and then we have some friends locally. My friend Lieber Ron Jenkins is an artist, and we have a group. We really just talk about more like concepts like spiritual laws, spiritual traditions. We just touch on the ET things a little bit. But I have, since 2020, attended some major conferences, mostly on the West Coast, and I have spoken at 4. I've spoken 4 times out on the West Coast about my experience and just my knowledge of extraterrestrials.
And okay, so what kind of if you were a speaker, what kind of things would you speak on, like that we haven't covered yet here?
I don't know. I mean, the connection between ancient cultures, the development of man and extraterrestrials, that these beings had something to do with our origin on Earth. It wasn't that we just were born here on Earth and we're the only ones. It wasn't just one Adam and one Eve. There were more than one ancestor. And there's different races that settled here in very ancient times.
Wow, that's very interesting.
Yep, there's a lot of books written about these things in the last 30, 40 years, and people who are talking about their experience. Some people are talking about that the government has taken some technology of crashed ships and used it to, they back engineered the remains and used it for our technology or even for war.
So reverse engineering the alien
Crashed
spaceships,
spaceships.
and you don't call them aliens, do you?
I don't use the word aliens, but it's a popular term. Some people are saying there's no aliens. They're saying they're just it's some sort of spiritual energy, or they're saying they're demons. But not a lot of time the experiences. These beings are human. People have touched them. People have went on their ships. They say they have anyway.
So let's just go back around to Sun Ra, who believes that these otherworldly beings are here to help humanity and our whole entire Earth. How do you believe they're trying to help? Do you believe they're trying to help?
Yes, there are some. There were some allegedly reptilians and others that were trying to hinder humanity. And that's why there's a control system in the world, what people call the cabal or the deep state. There's a control system happening behind the scenes. I believe that. I don't know if I can prove it, but there's a lot of talk about it online and otherwise in personal discussions about these things. And we have an opportunity to be free as a species and exert our sovereignty, so to speak, because we are divine. We have a lot of potential, and people end up wasting it fighting wars that aren't necessary. And I believe that was orchestrated by the negative extraterrestrials. One of the storylines is Enki versus Enlil. Enki was an Anunnaki Sumerian being who was trying to help humanity, and Enlil was another being who was trying to limit us as a human species.
And I've had discussions with all kinds of different people, including paranormal investigators, and we've hit a lot of the similar or the same topics along
Great.
those conversations. But I've got to cut this now. Thank you so much, Brett Markus. I'm
you.
so glad that you're here, and we finally got to do this.
Yes.
And you
have me on again if you want.
of course. And I really did enjoy the conversation.
Thank you.
This is Community Unity Now, the D. Tycoon Show. I'm Bill Morton, president of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce and a Rogers Park resident right here. And for Trudy Leong, who is working full-time right now, we hope you have a great week.
She's great, huh?